Pull off a miracle. The shot! He scores! Miracle delivered! 3-2.
Giroux holding, gets around in front. Goal!
Up top, cruising is Provorov. He scores! Ivan Provorov wins it in overtime. Game 7.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Flyers Nation Show. I'm your host, Alexa Ross. It is episode 2. We are getting ready to look over how the offseason went, as well as the injuries that will be coming up this season and the first 2 preseason games. So let's get into it. Starting out first with the overview of the offseason, I think this is one of the best offseasons that the Flyers have had so far. You can see that they were really able to make moves in free agency, including sending Jacob Voracek to Columbus to get Cam Atkinson. I think that even though he is older, he is going to be a guy who can get things done for the Flyers, and I think that he's now one of those more highly anticipated names that you're going to see on this roster. It's definitely going to be one that gets you super excited to get watching this Flyers team. Chuck Fletcher wasn't just busy in free agency, he was also busy signing guys. You biggest being Joel Farabee to a 6-year contract, as well as Carter Hart to a 3-year deal. These 2 guys are really going to be key in getting things done here. They are up against the salary cap going into next season, so it might be hard to retain a couple of the people that they have either picked up or haven't signed. But I do think that it does give them a competitive edge this season because they are incredibly deep. They're able to get things done. Now let's take a look at some of those injuries that could be affecting the depth that this team has. Starting out, Kevin Hayes, he is in recovery from surgery. He should be out 6 to 8 weeks. Not a huge hit for the team in the long term, but definitely in the beginning of the season, it will make things a little bit harder. Zadie Wisdom is out until January, so that one is pretty tough because everyone was really looking forward to seeing him play. I know I was, for sure. And so knowing that he has to sit for a little bit is going to be definitely something that can be a little bit frustrating. Sam Morin is also expected to be out about 6 weeks due to knee surgery, and Wade Allison is out for an indefinite amount of time. So those are what we have going into the season, but let's take a look at those first 2 preseason games that we were able to watch earlier this week. Let's start out with preseason game number 1 that was on September 28th against the Islanders. They lost 3-2 in overtime. Carter Hart made 17 of 18 saves, so obviously he's on it. So I wouldn't be too worried about him just yet, but something to worry about is the Flyers power play. They went 0-3, but were unable to push things into overtime. Obviously it wasn't much extra hockey because the goal was scored just a few seconds into OT by the Islanders. So not a great showing for that first one. They were able to push it through. And on September 30th, the Flyers played a pretty much full, healthy regular season squad against the Boston Bruins. They lost 4-2. Joel Farabee scored both of those goals. I will say it was a pretty good showing against a team that is completely stacked. So I think that, it obviously went better than the first game. It probably wasn't a winnable game, especially with the squad that Boston presented, but I do think that it's a sign of things to come and a good upward trend. One of the biggest things that needed to be addressed was Ivan Provorov's defensive pairing. He now has a partner in Ryan Ellis. Ellis in his first season outside of Nashville. The 2 have really gotten to know each other off ice, and I think that that's going to be the real key to having a strong pairing in the back. These 2 have really started to play well off of each other, and I think the sky's the limit for this pairing, especially because they have the ability to play off of each other. Ellis has only really ever played off of one other player, so obviously that takes some getting used to. Provorov, on the other hand, plenty of pairings, and I think that that will make them a little bit more solid through the ability to just kind of mesh. Provorov doesn't have to focus on trying to build that chemistry with a ton of people, whereas Ellis is used to pairing up with one specific person. And I think that when you're able to do that, I really do think that that's going to be huge in stopping goals this upcoming season and making sure that people don't get to the net. And finally, we'll wrap things up with our first ever Twitter mailbag. Thank you guys so much for submitting your questions. I'm gonna start out with Joey Tarlini. Who do you think needs to step up the most this season? I think it's gotta be Morgan Frost. He was drafted 27th overall when a lot of people projected he would go in the upper second round. And I think that the Flyers did put a lot of stock in him. They had a lot of faith in him. Obviously, they went the Nolan Patrick route, and we saw how that turned out. So I think that having Frost have the ability to grow in the Lehigh Valley, things like that, that is only going to make things better. So long as he comes up, he can play on a bottom line, and I think that that's going to only add to the depth. And so long as he has the NHL experience, and he gets that this season, when the Flyers are up against the cap at the end of next season, it puts them in a better spot because they won't be able to retain everybody. But I think that having him able to grow, it will only set the Flyers up better for success moving forward. Our next question is from Dean. His question is, are you concerned about Kevin Hayes' surgery? I am not personally. I think that when you look at medical situations, especially in the NHL, and you look at the fact that we also have other people who have undergone surgeries this season and will be out for 6 to 8 weeks, this is something that obviously recovery, you can rush recovery, you cannot. But I think so long as the Flyers medical staff is on top of it, try not to force him back out so soon, I think that everything's gonna be fine. And I think because he is taking that time for recovery, I think that he's gonna be back and he's gonna be better than ever. Our next question is from Kyle Seifert. Kyle, thank you so much for your question. How do you imagine that the lines play out? I think that the lines might change, especially with Kevin Hayes out for the first 6 to 8 weeks, same with Wade Allison being out for a little while. I do think that we are going to see a top line of Claude Giroux. I think it's going to be Sean Couturier, and I think it's going to be Travis Konechny. I think that when you look at the second line, you're going to see a Joel Farabee, a Kevin Hayes, a Wade Allison. Obviously, Provorov and Ellis are going to be top line defense. Those two are really, we've talked about it earlier, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out, but I do think that that's going to be fun. I think that as we look towards the bottom six, and you have Oscar and Cam Atkinson, I think that they are going to play off of each other really, really well. I think that we will see a lot of line changes, especially with these early injuries, and I'm interested to see how that progresses and how, with the absence of Kevin Hayes, how the top six does look. Our next question is from SMC. Do you think the Flyers need a jersey overhaul or not? I personally really like the jerseys. I also really like the recently released jerseys that are eco-friendly. I think that's a really cool initiative that they're doing, especially with everything that's going on with Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. I like that we're taking a more sustainable route. I think that the colors look great. I think the design is really good. I think that we're fine. I don't think that necessarily overhauling a uniform is going to change play or anything like that. I'm not superstitious like that. I know some people are. I personally like them. I think they should stay. I think that it's just a really classic look. Obviously, other people think that, well, if you're entering a new era of a team, then you should change things out. I don't know. I think that's certainly a personal preference thing, but I like where they're at right now. And our final question of the day, is Carter Hart worth it? Or are we just blinded by one good season? I am pro Carter Hart, and I think that being able to see that Chuck Fletcher made a really strategic move in signing him to an extension when he could have really done a lot of other things. He could have picked up someone else in free agency. He could have made other decisions to show that he didn't have faith in him. Showing that he did and giving him that extension makes me think that everything is going to go up for him. I think that having the franchise behind him is only going to give him more confidence, which is only going to help his play. And I'm really excited to see what he's able to do this year, because I do think there's greatness in there. We've seen flashes of it. He just needs to be more consistent. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 2 of the Flyers Nation Show. Please be sure to submit more questions to us on Twitter, and we'll see you guys very soon.